The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're coming to you live from the Warner Center in Woodland Hills, California. This is the home for Autism Live. It is also the home for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. We're going to be with you live for the next 2 hours talking about autism from a 360-degree perspective. We're so lucky because on Wednesday mornings, we get Dr. Doreen Grampuchet. She's here live. You just saw her pen move over there. She's here live. It's okay.
Sorry.
It's all right. They know you're here. She's here live and she's going to be answering your questions in just a minute. In the second hour, we are joined by Nancy Allspot Jackson for Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. We've got two amazing guests with us today. We have a fabulous woman from One Hope Wine. She's going to be talking about the mission that they're on to help provide ABA to individuals and make sure that the parents get a taste of a really good wine. Those are two good things, aren't they? And then we've got a young filmmaker who happens to be on the spectrum. It's his second time being on the show with us. Jonathan Carlender is going to be here and talk about his newest passion project. Plus, we've got all the In the News. That's all coming up in the second hour. But I want to remind you that both hours are meant to be interactive. We love it when you guys write in and talk with us. Samantha's going to show you some of the different ways that you can participate, while I'll remind you that our homepage is autism-live.com. And I know I keep saying it, but we are just days away from debuting our new website. And I'm telling you, I got to tootle around in it the other day and I thought my head was going to explode. It was so exciting. I can't wait for you guys to see it. But for now, go to autism-live.com. You'll see a computer screen. Click on the triangle that's on the computer screen. That will start either the live show or the most recently recorded live show. And then if you want to go back in time, as Samantha just showed you, there are lots of places to go to see all the archive shows that we've done. Or you can click on that memo tab that's in the upper left-hand corner. That shows you the 100 most recent shows. That's something that's about to change in just a few days. You're going to be able to access on our homepage all the videos that we've ever done. It's powerful. It honestly made me misty when I saw it. It's a very cool thing. Now, I also want to mention, though, that right now there is something called the live feature on the other side of the screen. It's a series of white boxes. If you will put your cursor in the box that says your question, all you have to do is type and hit enter. Now, the plus of doing it on that site as opposed to doing it on Facebook or YouTube or Periscope or Twitter or any of the other places that we're live is that you have total anonymity when you do it on our website. Nobody knows who you are, including me. All we see is exactly what you send to us, and I'm the only person who sees that. I have the ability to share if it doesn't have any identifying things, and I'm really nervous Nell about that. So a lot of times I'll just read it to you guys without sharing it in case it could in any way identify somebody. So write in to us in whatever way feels good to you, because we love to hear from you, and that's really what we're all about, is this interaction. It's conversation. You know, I always say we do this together. Si se puede, right? Okay, it's time for Ask Dr. Doreen.
Dr. Doreen Grampuchet is the
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Grampuchet.
Dr. Grampuchet.
Dr. Doreen Grampuchet.
Dr. Doreen Grampuchet is a visionary in the field of autism. Now you can ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen. Welcome to Ask Dr. Doreen. We welcome Dr. Doreen Grant-Pichet back. And
Good morning.
you were here last week, but I didn't get to be here
That's
with
right.
you, and we
That's
have
right.
to really
Well, we
say
had
thank
fun without you because
Well-
of the cute thing that you and Samantha did for my birthday.
Well, and belated happy birthday.
Thank you very much.
And I have to say that was entirely Samantha's brainchild. I was along for the ride on it. She's very talented.
I love it. I showed
and-
it to my kids. They loved it too.
We had a lot of laughs as
awesome.
she was working on it.
It was awesome.
So, and I'm glad that Nancy got to be here to share that with you, but I was chartreuse with envy. But you know, sometimes when your kid needs you, your kid needs you. So that's where I was. But thank you for being here last week, and we really want to thank Nancy for being here. But I'm here now, and we're going to have a good time this morning. For those of you who don't know Dr. Grant-Pichet, how much is it my pleasure to introduce her to you? She is, I believe, the preeminent expert in autism in any time, not just our time, in any time. And she is so gracious in how she gives to everyone, the
Thank you very
families,
much.
to the kids. I honestly say that, you know, as an autism mom, in this journey, you meet people who are not the real deal. Let me assure you, she's the real deal.
Thank you,
And
Shauna.
and you meet people who see your kids and don't honestly see your child as a whole child. That's not Dr. Grant-Pichet. She's the first person, and honestly, your organization is the place where I felt at home, because everybody saw me, saw my child, saw us as people, and what a difference. I could wax poetic about, this has been a very big week for us, and I could wax poetic about the amazing gifts that you gave to us
Thank you
and
so
to my
much.
kid.
Thank you so much.
So I'm glad that you guys are here and that you have an opportunity to ask her questions in real time. You can be writing in on any of the different formats and platforms that we're on right now. It's wonderful that she donates this hour. I do want to say that there is no expert in any field that, no matter how long they've been working, that could give individual specific advice in this format, because they don't have an opportunity to really get to know the person, see, ask questions, and evaluate, right? But if you will write in and be as specific as possible, what she can do is give you some information of a general nature that will help you to make decisions and save you some time maybe in deciding which way to go next.
Absolutely right.
So,
Thank you.
so appreciate you for that. And we do have the live feature open now if people want to write in questions, but we had questions from before and they're already starting to pour in. I can't read with these glasses. I'm at that point in my life where it's like I need 7 pairs of glasses
Oh,
for
God, I
everything
know
that I
that.
do. Age. The alternative is worse, right? Okay, so want to start with this question because I thought this is a really good question. My 4-year-old is going to be starting at a new autism center full-time in Connecticut. He has been receiving home ABA through them, and they seem like a great company, but they do not allow parents to enter the autism center if other kids are there. We can't even bring our kids in. The one-on-one will come out to the car to get them. There will never be a holiday party where we're invited, etc. They say it's because of confidentiality rules, that everyone knows the children have autism, so we can't see the other kids. Is this normal? It is disconcerting to send your autistic child to a school where you can't ever enter unless all the kids are gone. They said maybe they can do a Skype where you can see only your child, but I don't like being closed out of my preschooler's school. And okay, so there is a HIPAA issue.
Not really.
Okay.
So for us, I mean, I agree. Like, on our name even gives it away for us, right? Center for Autism. So I have had situations where I've had celebrity patients or parents kind of have a hard time coming into a center because their lives are all over the news. But having said that, aside from that, it is not that we are, HIPAA pertains to disclosing information that is not sort of readily or observable, right? So if a child has autism and they go to any location and they have behaviors that signify autism, that is just the whole general public knows that. So this is not really, to me, we have centers, as you know, Shannon, everywhere, and we never have this issue because all the parents allow other parents, because it's a mutual agreement amongst all the parents in that sense. So they know that by bringing their child there, another parent would possibly see their child or see them, and it's a mutual thing. They want that because they want to be able to see their own kids. There's not a single parent who doesn't want to see their child during the day, or make sure that, especially with a child who has special needs, I can't imagine that there's a parent out there who says, I don't want to see what they're doing.
Yeah.
Right? So
Exactly.
it's one of those things where, I mean, I have typically developing kids who are in schools, and I still wonder what goes on in their schools, right? I want to know. But with our kids, I think that it's the right of every parent. And by the way, all you have to do, all that school has to do, is to get a release from all the families, which we do. So you get a release from all the families that just because of the entrance, the contact, there might be, we do even video training, as you know, so we videotape a lot of our kids, we promote it, all that sort of stuff amongst our own staff. So this is a very easy thing that center could fix if they chose to.
It's interesting because I didn't realize all that, and recently somebody had asked me a question about what did I think would be the best possible thing for autism parents in terms of parent training.
Right.
And I said, you know, there's all this stuff that's available now that parents can get the same training that a therapist has, but what's missing is the knowledge that a therapist gets when they are in a center and they see lots of therapists working with lots of kids and see that, oh, and over a period of time, that all these kids make progress.
Yeah.
And that if parents had an opportunity to go in for however long it took them and to see other kids getting therapy and lots of different therapists doing lots of different things with them to get the
gist of what it is.
Well, and in order that it's not, I think a lot, what happens is that people, and we're guilty of this even at Autism Live, people go online to see what good ABA looks like, and a lot of times what they see is a DTT moment. They don't see the full breadth of it. They think it's this, step one, step two. They don't see it as a
natural
toolkit,
right?
Where it's like, which one do we want to use for which kid in which moment for which lesson to get them to the moment where they excitedly learn the thing that they do. And I think that comes with time. A parent will see it eventually, but being able to see therapists working with different kids, I think it would calm parents' fears so much, because it's that thing that I always say to you guys about parents go, oh, potty training, and the therapists will all go, oh, potty training, we've cracked that code, that's not a problem.
Right.
And the parents go, you should be having anxiety when I say potty training. And the therapists go, no,
that's not a big deal.
Right. And once a parent's been through it, they go, oh yeah, no, potty training, it's totally doable.
Right.
But to be able to see across a spectrum, a lot of people working in a lot of different ways, I think it would ease a lot of concerns that parents have.
Absolutely. I even tell new parents to go and check out a site before they decide.
Yeah. Because
I think it gives them the opportunity to sort of see how we work with the kids, see what their child would be experiencing. So this is not good.
Okay. I'm so happy to know that. Okay, continuing on, and then we're going to take a break, but I love this one. Greetings. I just discovered this site in the last few days, and I am loving your show. Guess what? We love you back. How's that?
Yeah.
I'm especially enjoying the word, phrase, acronym of the day, jargon of the day. Don't we love that? Because I am very new to the autism community. My 4-year-old son was just diagnosed with ASD last month. I have a bunch of questions. Well, you've come to the right place. I have registered with CARD and will begin TAP, the Autism Play Program training this week. What do you suggest for discouraging the following behavior? I asked my son to throw his diaper in the trash so he can participate in the hygiene process. Last year, he started holding his hand in the garbage bucket as he placed the diaper in there. He will keep his hand there until someone tells him to take his hand out of the dirty garbage. I guess he liked the reaction he got out of us the first time he did it. And now it's just an attention-getting activity for him. I know a lot of times we're encouraged to ignore attention getters, but I can't let him keep his hand in the trash. I can't wait to hear what you say to this one.
This is such an easy fix.
Okay.
This is like a seriously easy fix. Just place a reinforcer. As soon as he puts his hand in there, just place a reinforcer outside the bucket.
Okay, because
so he'll have to drop it and get the reinforcer.
Okay.
really
so
simple.
Easy. That's so easy.
Yeah.
Okay, so but you know where my head went? It's funny because we were just talking about the potty training thing, that this little guy is a 4-year-old and that he has enough skills to take the diaper off and put it in the trash. And so my question is, let's do the potty training.
Absolutely.
Right?
So let's fix this, and then
Yes.
you're just starting. We won't do the potty training program until we have some rapport with him.
Yeah.
So, and he is 4, and Shannon has a really good point. It's late. Let's get this done.
Yeah.
So within about 6 months or so, we'll get him involved and do a potty training program with him, which is usually like a week max. So we'll get it done, so don't worry.
And you see the confidence with which she says that.
Oh yeah, for sure. This is going to be easy. This is like a, you know, this is a child who's very aware, like he's looking around and enjoying the reaction of people freaking out because he's putting something in the trash can. That's awesome.
They're all good signs.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all you have to really do is just to have a reward for him that requires his use of his hands after.
Love it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
so this will be fun.
All right. And so we're going to take a short break, and then when we come back, we've got a question about compliance. But don't forget, you can be writing in on the live feature or in any one of the other sites that we're on right now. We'll be right back after these messages.
Hi guys, welcome back to Smarty. We're going to be working on identifying and labeling emotions. In February of last year, I know we did something super similar, but I promise you for this project it's going to be faster and easier because part of the project you'll be printing from our Facebook page at facebook.com/autism-live. Well, here's the rest of the materials you'll be needing. Templates, scissors, crayons, and tape. The first step you're going to do is print the template from facebook.com/autism-live. I have them right here, and I printed them double-sided. So now that I have all the pages printed out, I'm going to hand it off to my kiddo to have them color it in. So while they're coloring the face, you can of course work on identifying colors, labeling features, staying in the lines, and of course working on that pincer grasp. Once your child has finished coloring all the faces, you're going to take the pieces of paper and fold them in half. Once I have all the pages folded in half, I'm going to layer them together like a booklet. Now that I have them like this, I'm going to do is take my tape inside and kind of tape it together so they're bound together. If you have a stapler, you can do that too. Alright, now that this has been taped together, it looks like I have a book. So we're almost done with the project. All we need to do now is cut along the dotted line. Keep in mind, don't go all the way across the edge or else it's going to be cut into thirds and it's not going to be a solid book anymore. The other thing in mind is, your kid can work on following the straight line while cutting, and if they can't do that, help them out. Alright, my booklet now has been cut up, and as you can see, I can now take a tab and flip it, and it'll change the look of the face. And what you can do is, ask your child how the emotion of the face changes based on what parts of the features you change. Well, I hope you had fun doing this activity with me, and until next time, craft on, guys.
Can you see me flying by your side?
Hey, I'm Candace Cameron Bray.
Tom Bergeron.
You're watching Autism Live.
And you're watching Autism Live.
And you're watching Autism Live.
You're watching Autism Live.
Welcome back to Autism Live and to Ask Dr. Doreen. We're here with Dr. Doreen Grampichet, and she is answering your questions in real time. Before the break, I promised that we were going to go to a question about compliance. This is one of my favorite topics.
Okay.
It really is. So how do I teach my son basic compliance? My son is 3, and I can't think of any instruction he follows. He's difficult to take to the park since he just runs away and doesn't respond to stop. I really want to take him out, but I am worried for his safety. And I remember these days. I remember the point. See, my son, I don't know for you, but my son regressed into autism, and there came a point when I could not walk with him down a sidewalk. If I tried to hold his hand, he would lean over until he was sideways and laying on the ground. And then if I let go of his hand, he would run. And he would run towards traffic.
Yeah.
And I was terrified. And I always say when I do talks that eventually we started to look like vampires because we didn't leave the house. I didn't have a backyard for him to be in. We were in a condo. And so we didn't go to the park. And my life got really, really small, and his life got really small. And at a point, I thought, this will never change. And I was trying to teach him things, but it wasn't happening. And it was scary because you start to lose hope. And then when you learn about how to get compliance and when you see that it's possible, this is why it's one of my favorite topics, because it changes the whole dynamic.
Right.
So talk to us a little bit about compliance.
So let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Why do you think it wasn't happening before? What was the biggest thing that changed when you started an ABA program?
I changed my behavior.
Okay. Okay. And how?
Well, I first of all, because there was the thought in my head, and I hate saying this because it was the worst moment when I thought my son wasn't teachable. That thought had crossed my mind, and I gave up a little bit in that moment, right? But when I was trying to get him to comply, I was coming at it from a mindset of what I thought it was going to take, which wasn't the thing, and there was fear because he wouldn't do it, right?
Okay.
And I will tell you honestly too, the other side of this is once I learned what CARD taught me, there came a moment where everything got easier. And I remember my husband coming home from work one day and in tears looking at me and saying, I don't get it. How come now when you ask him to come here, he comes? Peter asks him to come and he comes. And every other therapist asks him, and he says, and I ask him to come and he's someplace else. And I said, well, you better learn this. There is stuff to learn and you better learn it. You better pay attention in clinic. Right. Wasn't my finest wife moment.
Right.
But interesting that then he saw that we were able to, and he was like, what's the secret sauce here?
Right. Okay, great. Awesome. Thank you. So as you were saying this, I started writing notes on, I think there's 4 real important components that need to change for parents. One is, it starts with what you're thinking. It's your own belief system, right? So if you believe that things are not going to get better, they're not going to get better. Period. If you believe that your child is going to significantly improve, they're significantly going to improve. It's just that simple. So that's first. It has to do with your belief system. And the older the child is, I believe that what happens with our parents is they just become helpless, hopeless. They lose all hope because it's now 3 years, 4 years, 5 years where the child is getting more and more out of control, and they really start to believe this is an unteachable child and I cannot do anything about it. And learned helplessness and hopelessness always accompanies fear. So the second step is the courage to do something about it. So one is change your belief system. Second is be brave enough to do something about it, right? So that's a big one. Because fear basically makes us freeze, and there's no question about it. Anything that is difficult, we initially fear. So that's the second thing. So those are things you can do easily. The third thing is the technique.
Yeah.
It's learning the content. And the technique is very easy, and I'm going to talk about it in a minute. And then the fourth, which is also, I think, very important, is practice.
Yeah.
Because what we do is we learn these techniques and we try to implement them in the course of life. And the big difference with what we do here as ABA therapists and what you do as parents is that we're not doing it in the course of life. We're doing it as a specific learning activity. So it's not when you're out at the supermarket or something like that initially. It's a specific activity that is focused on teaching, do not run away. And it's not when you're out. It's focused on that one thing. So everything in the environment is modified to make that one thing happen, as opposed to you thinking, oh, I can just teach him not to freak out when we're at a supermarket. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do.
You focus on it as opposed to try to deal with it while you're dealing with 500 other things.
Yes.
So that's the fourth thing. So the 4 things are change your belief system, have the courage to try, learn the techniques, and then actually work on it, practice it as its own thing. Now
not in the moment that it's happening, outside of that.
Exactly.
Yes.
So let's talk about the technique, because all we're asking for here, and I try to go general because it'll help a lot of other people that are listening as well. It doesn't matter what the behavior is. It could be running away, it could be hitting, it could be whatever it is. It is always the same thing. You change a behavior by changing the antecedents and changing the consequences. Those two things is how you change the behavior. How do we know how to modify the antecedent and the consequence? We have to identify the function of the behavior. What is the function of the behavior? It's why the behavior happens. It's the reason for the behavior to happen. He's running away for a reason. Now, the reasons are pretty complicated in a running away type situation. Some things are very easy to identify, the functions. And, you know, to simplify the functions down really to their basics, we're always talking about you always want to gain access to something or avoid something. That's it. Running away is probably a combination of the two. He wants to avoid having to walk calmly next to you because he is a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
And 3-year-olds generally are much more hyper than adults. So he's trying to avoid that. And then he's trying to gain access to the stimulation of running fast, which is a fun thing for 3-year-olds. Yeah. So it's fine. It's not a big deal. But what you have to do is you have to prevent him from doing the inappropriate behavior and give him a different out. Now that's always the case, whether we're trying to teach a child not to hit someone to gain access to a toy, you block the hitting and you teach them to ask for the toy. You want to teach a child not to tantrum in order to get out of a classroom. You don't take them out of the classroom when they tantrum, but you teach them to ask for a break, and then so you always do that. You always take away what they achieve by doing the bad behavior, the challenging behavior, and you give them other ways to ask for that same function, the same reason. So with a child who's running away, you don't take them out and you don't give them the opportunity to run away. And the best thing for that, honestly, is to use one of these holsters. There's a million different types of holsters that you begin with. So the first thing is always safety, and there's a hierarchy of like sort of things that we worry about. Safety is the absolute first, right? So there are these really cool holsters. They look like a belt. It's a belt that you attach to your belt and to the child around their waist. It doesn't even look all that odd but it is secure and the child cannot run away from you. It's really that simple. You start with that and you purchase that. You can use a rope. It doesn't matter, but you attach yourself to the child and you do it pretty close to begin with. And as the child learns that there is no escaping this, you gradually increase the distance so that the child now has more and more freedom, and you reward the child for staying with you even though the rope is loose. So the child could potentially now run away, but they won't because the reward is to stay there. And you don't practice this on a dangerous street. You practice it in a backyard or in an empty parking lot where there are no cars. And then you eventually, once the child has learned to stay next to you without a rope, that's when you start going to a real life situation and you're still being very cautious about it. So this is called shaping. Now, shaping is a procedure that is used in ABA all the time in a million different ways. And I don't want to, I'm not sure if running away is one of the behaviors that is very specifically taught when you look at IBT, but you should probably go to our IBT website, Institute for Behavior Training, and their website is ibehavioraltraining.com. And you should go there because you can teach yourself not just this technique that I told you, but every behavioral technique, all the different ways to modify consequences and antecedents and to change behavior. Shaping is one way to do it. There's training, there's just increasing reinforcer, there's modifying antecedent, there's prompting. There's a million things that we do.
It's that toolkit that I was just mentioning. There's a toolkit and you decide which tool in which instance. And
exactly right. And so it's really the best thing you can do, because this is not the first and it's not going to be the last behavior you deal with. You're going to have a bunch of these and you're going to want to have tools, as Shannon said, that you can just go to immediately. When I see a situation with a child, whether it's my own child or another child, it doesn't matter. I instantly know how to deal with it because I know all these tools, right? And that is the gift of behavior analysis. It's not just for dealing with challenging behavior, it's for everything. Like you literally can manage your neighbor's anger with this, and you can deal with the, you know, postman who's never on time, and you know, you learn how to modify the behavior of everyone in your environment through the use of reinforcers and removal of reinforcers. And so that is really a very important thing, and I think it would be beneficial for any parents to just learn the behavioral techniques because they're extremely useful.
It's life-changing. It's life-changing. And I do think that there's something in this environment that we live in and the way that we've all been raised where we have left out, it's like we've forgotten culturally the whole idea of reinforcing other people.
Right.
It feels weird. It doesn't feel, you know, for a lot of people, when we talk about reinforcing a child for something or reinforcing someone else, they're like, but you know, it sounds weird when I say it. It sounds false. It sounds fake. And that's so funny to me because I remember feeling that way.
Right.
But just this morning on the drive-in, I was in my car, and at one point I was at a stoplight, and there was this huge dog hanging out the window of the car next to me, and I can't stand that. I had to talk to the dog, right? You know me. And so I rolled down my window, and I was like, well, aren't you the cutest little thing ever? And now I'm sure that the man who was driving the dog thought it was me trying to come on to him, which was I was into the dog. And so I was having a whole conversation with the dog, and he said, oh, this is Ralph. This is Wreck-It Ralph. And Ralph, you know, you can have him. Cute dog. And I was like, I'll take him, bring him right over here. And he was like, oh, he never comes when you call him. He just doesn't. And I kind of looked at him and was like, oh. And I said, that's because you have to give him something when he comes.
Yeah.
And you got to reinforce him. And the guy was like, no, you can call him forever and he won't come. He runs the other way. And I thought, oh, he just doesn't get it.
That's so funny, yeah.
I have a dog who is a crazy dog, and she can be outside barking whatever,
Right.
but she knows I go to the door and all I have to do is say, Daisy, and she comes at a clip because she knows she's going to get something.
Right.
Even though the behavior that she was doing outside, a lot of people go, you shouldn't be outside barking. Instead of giving the reinforcer, we've been trained to do that, and we do that with our dogs. We do that with our kids. We want to school them instead of saying thank you for coming.
Absolutely right.
Good job coming.
Absolutely right. So, and then many aspects of what you're just saying is also that we also think that we can't actually train our kids. Like, I don't know how to explain this. Like, people are very averse to ABA because they think sometimes that it's like animal training.
Exactly.
Guess what? It is like animal training. We are animals.
It works.
All of us. We're all animals of some type or another. It changes human behavior. It's the same procedures and techniques that we use to change animal behavior. All we're doing is we're simplifying things down to their very, very core. And so, and another part of this, Shannon, is that just society as a whole has moved away from rules. Like, we're much more with teens, with our children in particular. The rules have, a lot of parents don't choose to implement rules of society. They choose to kind of let their children access all reinforcers whenever they want.
Yeah.
And that's just a way of saying we spoil our kids. We do. We let them have whatever they want to do whenever they want to, and then we question why they come into the world and as teens they start to do crazy things. Because guess what? By the time they're teens, they're bored with it. They've had access already. They're satiated to all the reinforcers. They just want higher and higher levels of reinforcers. So it's really important when your child is young to actually give your child something to strive for and to limit their access to free reinforcers and allow them to learn. Let me tell you, one of the most amazing things for my kids, I think, and you know my oldest daughter, you know all of my kids, but like when you look at them, they really, achievement of some goal in life is very meaningful to them, is in itself very rewarding to them.
Yeah.
And that's something I think that they've learned over time. And I think for our kids, when our kids get diagnosed, one of the things that parents do often, I find, is that they have so much fear and empathy and just sympathy, and they don't know enough about autism, that all demands, all expectations of the child are removed.
Yeah.
Like we think, oh, the poor child has autism, therefore I should let him get away with everything.
Yeah.
And that's not the case at all. Our kids with autism have absolutely the capability to learn. In many cases, they're extremely intelligent children, and they're just learning a different way. And the language of ABA is what helps you communicate with your child. But please don't fear placing demands on your child, rewarding them when they do good. Please don't fear setting the correct contingencies on the child. Don't allow the child to just go at it and have everything because you feel bad about the autism. Yep. The autism is a transitory condition. To me, it's not something that is going to rule them forever. You're just teaching. It's just harder for them to learn the typical way. So you need to modify the way you teach so that they learn.
Right. So to recap, behavioral training, where you can go and take a class really at your own speed
right.
about compliance, and there's every other topic that's there. ibehavioraltraining.com. We have tons of videos on compliance on the show because, as I said, it's one of my favorite things to talk about because it's immediately life-changing. You want to change your life today, start to get the compliance piece, and your life will get easier, and you will enjoy your child more. They will enjoy you more, and then you will be like, what else can we do? So it's a pretty fabulous
And actually,
thing.
just very quickly before we let this one question go, because mom or parent says, my son's 3 and I can't think of any instructions he follows. By the way, I wouldn't start working on running away as my first instruction. I would work on really basic things like stand up and sit down and come here. And those are much more easily controllable by a team of people. And you're doing it in the safety of your home, and the child learns the connection between complying with an instruction you give and receiving a reward. That's the most important thing in the beginning of ABA, is for the child to understand, oh, when I do what they ask, I get something really good out of it. You establish that relationship before you start doing things that require more shaping, like running away, stopping the running away. You start with something as basic as sit, and you're prompting the child and giving him a reward. And then he starts to realize, oh, when they say sit and I do this, I get a cookie or something. And
it's not hard for me to sit, so I'm happy to do it.
Exactly, exactly.
And I just want to say, too, the A Word, not the British television show, the one on our channel. Go to the A Word, and you will see Jack Riley with real therapists, real boy on the spectrum, that they start to work on the stand-up and come here and sit down with him, and then they work up to the point where they're having difficulties with him outside because he doesn't want to hold hands and wants to run into traffic, and if mom asks him to hold hands, he tries to bite her arm, and you watch them work through that, and that behavior goes poof and away. Life gets better. Compliance is a good thing. All right, we've got so many questions. I got to move on here.
Great.
And of course, my screen just went away. Sorry.
Can I just, as you're doing that, answer this quickly? One question that says, my son is 4 and only wants to make a long line with his toys and then look at them from different angles.
Yes.
He gets very upset if you move any of the toys. How do I get him to play the right way with them? So this is, before we get into the concept of how do you teach appropriate play, which is a much more advanced process, and I just want to make sure you realize that those are 2 pretty significant symptoms of autism, and you should really he should be receiving a full ABA program, a comprehensive ABA program, which essentially means a 40-hour-a-week one-to-one intervention program where all this kind of stuff is part of the rigidity and what we call stereotypic repetitive behaviors of autism, and the way that they are replaced, the way that they're eliminated is by replacement. So in his case, you just need to unfortunately block it, which is going to evoke a lot of other behaviors, and I'm not sure that I would want you to do that unless you're in the middle of a program. Because so as you start to block these types of obsessive compulsive behaviors, the child will try to replace them with other types of behaviors, and he will get very frustrated because they're very obsessive in nature, and they'll distract from his thinking because he'll constantly be thinking, how do I line things up? But as you start to teach him other things and occupy his time with other things, then these things are blocked. So that's the way to deal with them.
They also cover this in the A word as well, where
Yes.
Jack Riley likes to lay on his side and line things up. So check that out as well. All right, we have some massive questions that we would love to take hours to explain, but we don't have time. But
Let's do our best.
Okay, so Jessica on Facebook wants to know, how do you potty train someone who is nonverbal?
Mm-hmm. So it doesn't matter. We don't need verbal for potty training. The whole potty training procedure, and I think we actually have a few videos on it that we can play for you, but we generally follow some modified version of the Fox and Azrin potty training procedure, which is not a very complicated procedure. It doesn't require verbalization because we use pictures as well where the child can indicate it's time to go. But what we do is we basically start with the child on the toilet more than off the toilet, and we reinforce voiding. So you're giving a lot of reinforcement for the child to pee, and then you will gradually, with increasing intervals, remove the child from the toilet so that now they're off the toilet, but you make sure that they don't have accidents. Therefore, you kind of get them back on the toilet every 15 minutes, and you then gradually start to increase that period of time. I don't want to make it sound like it's easier, that easy, because there's very specific timing to it. But I believe we have this on so many different
We actually have a video with Dr. Sienna Greener-Wooten where she goes, and we play it from time to time. And we've done lots of shows on it. I think I've got a blog on the Skills website right now about potty training, and you can get the protocol for it at Skills for Autism, FOR autism.com. But you know, I know it feels like when it's a nonverbal child, it's going to be vastly different. It really
isn't at all.
Okay, then we have another question from Facebook. What should I do when he's constantly hitting me? This is not from the same parent, by the way. What should I do when he's constantly hitting me and my husband to get his way? We don't have an age on the child.
That's great. So he is so let's analyze this together. So the behavior that we want to change is hitting. And we already know that the function is to get his way. So I don't know what that exactly means. It could be that he wants to have an activity, or he wants to avoid an activity, whatever it is.
Have you get off the phone.
Or get an object, whatever it is. But get his way is a good way of putting it, because, and so what I assume happens is he gets his way. He gets his way. So what you do is you don't allow, so let's just, before we go there, I want to let the audience kind of figure this out on their own. So I hit and I get my way. So what's happening is my hitting behavior is being rewarded, because every time I get my way, I've accomplished what I wanted, right? So that hitting behavior will continue, because always remember one thing, this makes life a lot easier. Any challenging behavior is communication. Any challenging behavior, when it occurs, imagine what the child would be saying if they could say it. Okay, so when a child hits, the vocal of that would be, I want to get my way. Whatever it is, I want to get out of here. I want that object, whatever it is, right? If they could vocalize, that's what they'd be doing if they didn't hit. Now, what you want to do, once you know that, you realize, oh, it shouldn't work. I should prevent the child from getting their way, because what I'm trying to teach the child is this was not a very good form of communication. Hitting is not what you want to do. You can get your way, but in order to get your way, you have to ask. Right. So what you do is you prevent the child from getting their way when they hit, and instead you teach the child to vocalize what they want, and you give it to them when they vocalize it. Now, those are two simple, it sounds very simple, but you kind of have to do extinction on its own. So you have to prevent the child first from hitting, and then you have to teach them separately a different activity, and then this is called like differential reinforcement, because what you're doing is you're reinforcing another behavior in order to get their way. So this is a simple thing that you learn in ABA, but essentially the short answer is don't let him get his way.
Yeah.
You know, and if you want to give him breaks, or if he wants to have access to an object or whatever it is, separately teach him how to get do an appropriate behavior to get that.
Yeah, a lot of parents boil it down to when something's happening you don't like, you say, what is it that the child wants? Don't give it to them.
Exactly.
Exactly. Don't give them that. But when they do things that you do want, give them everything that they want.
And teach them how to do the things that you
exactly.
do want. Prompt, model, teach them how to ask.
Yeah, absolutely. Wonderful. Susanna on YouTube wants to know, how do you teach kids with ASD tenses, past, present, and future? Okay. Great question.
Very good question. And we usually start with just present tense, and there's a series of programs. In my head, it immediately turns into about 12 lessons.
Right.
And then I'm thinking, I shouldn't get into this because this is going to go on for a while. But essentially, you start with present tense, and then we teach past tense first, and then we teach future tense. But having said that, we will start with very basic actions where the child is identifying actions on a picture, and it's receptively done first. So it's things like touch, running, point to jumping, show me, so it's all on pictures. Then it goes to three-dimensional. So we have the child actually doing some of these things. So it's like jump. And that lesson, by the way, the clap, jump, telling the child actions, follows another lesson, which is imitation. See, I can't, in my head, it's all a million lessons that are like connected to each other. So once you have the child actually doing these receptively, then you have to do expressive present tense. So it's stuff like, what am I doing? And you do this, and the child says clapping, and so on. And this lesson obviously has to follow a verbal imitation lesson because they have to have enough ability to give speech. So then you have the child identifying both receptively and expressively present tense. Then you will go to past tense, because then you will do things like, you'll show a film and say, or do this and say, what did I do? Right. And then the child will say, you clapped. And then you rotate that with, what am I doing? You are clapping. And that's how they learn the difference between present and past. But this is what I just described as something that takes a year.
Right.
So it's like about 20 lessons, and they literally will take a year.
And you would never expect that a parent would know or remember all of those lessons. That's why Skills exists.
Exactly.
All the lessons are there. Go to skillsforautism.com. Tell them that Shannon sent you. Ask for the friends and family discount.
And then you will go to the actions, which is the very, very beginning of teaching tenses. And that's in the language curriculum. And then you will go to tenses, and that's also in the language curriculum. So you could just go straight into the language curriculum, or you could do the way Skills wants you to do, which is answer questions about what your child can and cannot do. And then Skills will just generate all the lessons, not just tenses, but every area of functioning, and tell you in what order to teach them.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And I didn't have Skills when my child was going through it. I just watched the therapist do it. And I was like, in the beginning, I was like, what are they doing? Right. I don't get it. Like, how are we going to get there? I don't see it. I really couldn't see the big picture. But then when you watch it fall into play, it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. So absolutely amazing. I'm going to move on to this next question, though, which breaks my heart. Our ABA provider reduced my child hours from insurance from 12 per week to 3 hours per week, as they want us to get off from their case. After many, many reasons. They just mentioned that they do not have enough therapists.
Oh my God.
I am concerned about insurance when we go to a new provider. How to deal with this? Thanks. I think you've answered your own question in saying that you're going to a new provider,
but you should also let your insurance company know. You should definitely contact someone at your insurance company and say, my provider just told me the reason they're changing their recommendations or write it in, is because they don't have enough therapists. This is unethical. It's not okay. There is nothing okay about that. Like, you should never reduce our recommendations because you don't have enough therapists. We are always short on therapists. We hire so many therapists, and we're constantly training them, but I will still prefer to keep the hours on the schedule. So if a child that is funded, it's unethical. If I want to recommend 20 hours for a child, I will keep the 20 hours even if I can only fulfill 10. And the insurance companies are not happy with me, provider, because they want me to fulfill the rest, and I will do my very best to fulfill the rest. And that's why I also tell parents, like, please don't cancel your sessions. Please help us schedule at the maximum, because these hours are vital for your child's future as well, not just now. But once you set a precedent for dropping a child to 3 hours a week, it's hard to go back up.
Yeah, it's right?
Yeah.
It makes me crazy. Okay, so Angie has written in and said, still waiting and getting services for my son. It's been 5 months and still waiting on my insurance. And she does say that we had a walkthrough with our local card facility and we can't wait to see our son grow. And I'm going to ask Angie, email me so that I can check and see what the holdup is with your insurance.
Yeah, 5 months is too long.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be 5 months, but it depends on your insurance. There have been some insurance companies that are out of control right now, but please do individually email Shannon, because I'd like to look into your situation and find out exactly what's going on.
So it's s.penrod, PENROD, at autism hyphen, that's the dash, the one in the middle, live, LIVE.com. Anybody can email me.
And can I just say also that we have a new service called our card concierge service for parents, where if anyone who is like having issues with starting at card, or not getting enough hours, or any of these types of issues that just let the concierge at card know. So that, because that's the person here whose job it is to go around to authorizations and or reports and figure out what the problem is and fix it.
But how do we get to I don't even know how to get to that person.
To the concierge? Okay, I will give you the information and we'll announce it. I believe that the person is accessible through our website.
Okay.
But
right.
we'll distribute that number, the name, everything.
Okay. Moving on to Stella says, we are still struggling to find the best academic growth environment for my 13-year-old high-functioning autism daughter. Both cyber and brick mortar have strengths challenges. So not really a question there in terms of because that's true, that's accurate. There are strengths and challenges to each one of those, but it's very individual based on the child.
It really is, yes, absolutely.
If think about what you specifically would want to ask, and please write us back, because that's so broad. Let us know what you need. Gracie says, 10-year-old son has become very aggressive at home and school. This is from YouTube. Also suddenly requires redirection for well-known routines. For example, morning, getting ready for school. It's like he's regressed. No consequences or talking behavior charts, etc. have helped. I'm out of ideas and need help with a different approach. And she says, please.
So figure out what has changed in his environment. So let's not just... So the first place I would go in my head is what's changed at school, because I assume he's going to school, and I assume the aggression occurs when he's getting ready to go to school. But these are all my assumptions. I don't know. But if I'm right, then figure out what's changed at school, because whenever aggression goes up, whenever we regress, it's because the reinforcers that were in place before are either not there anymore or not enough. So it's always about balancing the reinforcers in the environment, just like us, right? So I might have no problem getting up at 6:30 every morning and doing stuff, but if I have a particularly long day, like last week, I was working till 1 a.m., right? So every day. So I was just my reinforcer level in other areas needed to go up because I was exhausted, I was overdoing it, I was not getting enough sleep. And so I started eating more. That's what we usually do, is like we'll increase reinforcers in a bad area. But that's what you need to do, is you need to figure out what reinforcers in his environment have gone away, or there might even be a punisher in his environment we don't know about.
Yeah.
So please try to find out when these behaviors occur, what has changed? Like, where is he going? Is there something aversive going on where he's going?
We actually have a story in the news where an individual who was on the spectrum was starting to be violent, and mom was trying to figure out where it was happening. And no one was being violent to him in school, but they were saying horrible things to him.
Yeah.
And so it becomes important. Something has changed, but now you're going to have to be a detective and figure it out to see what's going on exactly with your child. Somebody wrote in on Facebook and said, my daughter has very limited words and recently started memorizing lines from her favorite cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
She keeps repeating them. Should I continue to allow her to do this, or should I redirect her?
So that's okay. I mean, this is kind of what we call delayed echolalia. I can't answer that question because I don't know her enough. Initially, we encourage echolalia because echolalia are repeating things that we hear, echoing. It's not a bad thing. It's one of the first ways that we start production of speech. But if it gets to be too much, I wouldn't allow it to get out of control. So like, the way that I look at it is that our children have this whole vacuum of language and speech, and they're trying to use what they hear, which somehow sticks with them, whether it's through cartoons they like or music a lot of times, and they will use that to communicate. And sometimes it's out of context because it's not used appropriately, but it is their only speech. So they'll use it, you know? So basically what you have to do is when you stop that, you have to replace it with appropriate speech. So it's sort of a thing that happens together. Before, I don't know if you're in a program, I don't know what her functioning level is other than this, but the ideal situation would be, yes, you should start reducing access to all these things that become repetitive, but at the same time, you understand that it's a reinforcer for her. Watching cartoons that she likes or whatever they are is a reinforcer. So have her do a lot of appropriate speech activities and then allow her to watch those types of cartoons. And when so this is another thing I want to comment on this. One of the things I learned many years ago with our kids is that when they have something to say, when they have when they use out of context speech, they will often, the only difference with other kids, let's say a 3-4-year-old, is that our kids don't introduce it appropriately. So, you're saying she's echoing it, but imagine if she introduced it by saying something like, if she had the language, she could say something like, I was watching this cartoon the other day and it was really cool because this little cat was saying meow, meow, whatever it is, right? So the introduction to the whole scene allows the person to appropriately repeat it, as opposed to just saying cat, meow, meow, or whatever it is. So when our kids get to a particular stage, we then teach them how to introduce what they want to repeat.
Yeah.
So that's the best I can do. Right now, it's like, I just don't know the child well enough to be able to tell you, but I would limit it for sure and then redirect to appropriate speech.
Okay. I've been, I wanted to make sure we got to this question because they asked it on Thursday, and I will tell you, I asked them to do something in the interim, but so hi there, we're waiting for a diagnosis, and I do want to caution again, I said this on Thursday too, if there are little ones in the room, some of this is, not everybody likes these kinds of topics for their kids to hear, so you have had warning. We're waiting for diagnosis for my 2-year-old, but in the meantime, she has several challenging behaviors I'm trying to work on. The first one is touchy because she's constantly masturbating. We're trying to get her to rub her belly button instead, so we redirect her every time to her belly button. Do you have any other suggestions? Also, she will walk with her hands under her armpits all day. If she has on a sleeveless or short sleeve shirt, she will not do it. If it's a long sleeve shirt, I can't find a replacement behavior, so we're having to put her in a long sleeve to block it because it's Florida and it's hot. Do you have any suggestions? And the two things that I said for them, but that I would try to get you to answer the question, is to rule out that there isn't something medically going on with the child, that there might be a UTI or a yeast infection or something.
Very good, very important.
So to make sure that they
very
rule that out,
yes.
For the masturbating. And then I thought it was very interesting that if she's in a long sleeve shirt, that she doesn't do this. And they're all, I said, I'm just curious, does she do it in a short sleeve shirt? Is that, like, try it and see, is the short sleeve shirt enough to, and the fact that there are mesh shirts that are long sleeve, that are like sun protectors, but are not hot. And I'm wondering if she does it for that, just as a fact-finding thing.
Sure, but
we haven't heard back.
No, but so she's saying she will walk with her hands under her armpits all day if she's on a sleeveless or short sleeve.
Oh, so they are saying already short sleeve.
And she won't do it in
with
a long sleeve
right.
shirt. So with both of those, me trying to figure out the function of the behavior, one could be, and it's more likely for a 2-year-old that what Shannon said is true. Like there could be itching going on or something that is causing her to actually do behavior that you think is masturbation. On the other hand, it could be masturbation as well, in which case that tells us that she's seeking out reinforcers, which she's not getting in other ways. Having her rub her belly button is not going to do it, because that is not going to give her either relief from itching or a positive feeling. So that's not going to work. What you need to do is block her. First of all, make sure medically that there's nothing else going on, and we deal with it if it's some sort of infection. If it is actually masturbation in process, you block it at this point. But this means that you now have to give her other very pleasant types of experiences. With our kids, what we do, and 2 is very young, that's why I'm wondering if it's masturbation. It doesn't usually happen with girls at 2. That's unusual. Usually it happens much later with girls, and maybe 3 or so with boys. So what I would say is you want to make sure first the medical issues, then secondly you would block it. Obviously you can't block it at night. That's fine. It doesn't matter because it's in the privacy of her own room and so on. But essentially during the day you will do activities that will keep her hands occupied and doing other positively reinforcing types of activities. Increase her reinforcers where you can. This is called non-contingent reinforcement. Increase her reinforcers. The reason is that you're just trying to balance out her reinforcers in the course of the day. Now, with the issue of the shirt thing, I'm not sure what she's getting from this. It could be, if she's not doing it with long sleeve, then more likely it's not the feeling of the arms, but it is the feeling of the skin-to-skin contact. So that might be something where you can just teach her to have other forms of skin-to-skin contact. Find out what the function is. So what was she getting out of it? Was she making a noise, perhaps, when she did this? Is she getting the skin-to-skin texture? What is it that she was achieving by doing that? Which you're getting there because you've already realized that it's not like the muscles, because then she would still do it. So figure out what that is and then replace it with something that gives the same sensory input but isn't as odd looking, I suppose. Okay. Now, this is you have a sensory child. You have a child who has a lot of sensory input issues. So when you do ABA, which I hope you're doing an intensive ABA program, she's 2, this is when you should be doing many, many, many hours.
And they're waiting to get the diagnosis.
Okay. Then I think what you need to do is make sure that the ABA providers are aware that she's going to need a lot of sensory types of reinforcers, and she's going to need sensory integration type activities that will help regulate her up and down moods and activities.
And there's a lot of things you can do for everybody while you're waiting to get a diagnosis. Skills for Autism, good place to go. But I also have to say, for the sensory-seeking kids, one of my favorite resources is the Pocket OT, Kara Kaczynski. She has little books that have on each page an activity you can do with your kids for sensory seekers. I love her book. So go to thepocketot.com and check out some of the things. She has a lot of free resources on her website. I've kept you like a minute late, and I apologize.
No problem. Sorry.
Yeah, so
happy we got through some of these.
I'm sorry I put you on a treadmill and we didn't even take breaks. But in any case, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
And we're going to take a short break. Then it's time for Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. We've got 2 fabulous guests. We have a wonderful guest from One Hope Wine. You're going to love the mission that they're on to help our kids get ABA. And then we have a young filmmaker on the spectrum, Jonathan Carlander, a little bit later on. Plus, in the news, and Nancy Allspaw-Jackson joining me here. So stick with us.
Potty training is different for every child. A child could come in with absolutely, no control over their bladder, and as long as that's not a medical issue, then we can certainly approach it behaviorally and give them the tools they need to be successful, just like any other skill that we would teach.
Well, we think he's learning to pee on the potty. No big successes yet, and lots of accidents. Here is the laundry from today.
For some of our kids takes, just a couple days. And then for other kids, it can take months and months and months. And then when you're looking at complete independence, it can take years.
Hey, you have to go pee-pee?
There's a lot of different ways to tell if a child is ready. We look for a couple different things. Probably the most important is parents saying, I need this to happen, I'm ready. Second is, a child showing interest in the bathroom, and some of it is simply age. It's time to go ahead and work on this.
What are you doing? Pooping. You're pooping?
You first start with teaching the child what they need to do on the toilet. The basic thing we want is for them to drink as much liquid as possible. It's inevitable that if you drink a bunch of liquid, you're gonna pee.
Help. No, I can't help you pee. Help. I can hold your hand, but I can't help you pee.
Ultimately, what we want is that, the child, as soon as they're put on the toilet, they urinate. So that's step one. Step two is usually working through the amount of time that they're off of the toilet and making sure that they're not having accidents during the time that they're off. So this is kind of the bladder control stage of things.
So the purpose of the potty log is just to see how long it takes them as soon as they sit on the potty for them to actually urinate, and the amount of time that he's able to hold his urine. And with the log, we're able to visually see how long it takes them each time, and if they have accidents or not. He's on a half-hour potty schedule, so if he doesn't go when we take him, then we have to take him in 10 more minutes. So every 10-minute intervals until he does go, and then we reset the clock, and it's 30 minutes again.
Okay, buddy. Okay, last chance to go pee-pees. Do we reset it for 10?
Oh, what does that mean? What does that mean, Jack? It's potty time! We can come play after. Hurry!
What we hope happens in this time is that the kids will learn how to initiate going to the bathroom on their own. This is oftentimes the hardest part of potty training, is because they get so used to somebody telling them when they need to go that they're not really recognizing the signs just in their own body of when they need to go.
Uh-oh, he wet himself.
Uh-oh. Big wet?
Was it a lot? We can reset to half an hour now.
The biggest thing for parents is not to give up. The other big tip, and I think pitfall that a lot of parents fall into, is putting their children back into pull-ups or diapers, especially if they're starting to have accidents. And this is probably the worst thing that you can do. They need to recognize that feeling of fullness in their bladder and take themselves to the bathroom, or tell an adult that they need to go to the bathroom.
What do you have to do? You have to put your pee-pee in the potty. Okay, give it a shot. See if you can put it in there. There you go. There you go. You're doing it. Yay, Jack. Big press for your pee-pee. Big press for your pee-pee. Woo! Yay! Good job. What a big boy. High five, high five, high five, high five, high five, high five, high five.
Good morning and welcome to Let's Talk Autism. I'm Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson.
I'm Shannon Penrod. Thrilled to be here
Hi.
with my good friends.
Yes.
And we got a big show today.
Yeah, we
My
have a couple of
goodness.
guests.
Yes, we do. Wonderful guest, Amanda Lamberti from One Hope One.
Right, whose mission is to make the world a better place. That's what their whole corporate philosophy is about.
Which you gotta love.
Right.
You absolutely have to love that sort of entrepreneurship with a mission.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that they have included autism and ABA in that mission
Yes.
is a beautiful thing.
Yes.
So we're going to talk to them about that because they've been a good sponsor
They
for
are the
Autism
title
Parent
sponsor
Tribute Today.
for our Act Today for Military Families Run and Festival this weekend.
And I think they make a big difference at the event. It's more fun because they're there, just
Right.
by nature of them being there. So that's a wonderful thing. And then a little bit later on in the hour, we have Jonathan Carlander, who has been with us before on the show. He is a budding filmmaker on the autism spectrum. He's got a new passion project that he's been working on that we can't wait to talk to him about. So
Right.
we're looking forward to that a little bit later on in the hour.
Absolutely.
But first, we have some
In the news stories.
Yeah. I always like to start with the worst in work away from that.
Okay. Well, we've got a disturbing story out of Louisiana.
And we just referenced it with Dr. Grant-Pichet a little bit too, because we never, we trust every day and we send our kids off to school, all of us, and we don't always know what's going on.
No.
And more parents are seeing that sometimes when a behavior pops out of nowhere, it can be because something is happening
related
in the
to
school.
what's going on in
And this is
school.
certainly what the case was here. And mom found out about it in very interesting circumstances.
Right. This is 2 teachers in Louisiana have been fired after an audio recording allegedly captured them mocking and saying inappropriate things about a boy with severe autism. The mother, Melissa Davis, sent her 12-year-old son to his school, Hope Academy, with a recording device in his backpack because he had been aggressive at home and wetting the bed. So she knew something was going on, and her instinct told her to try to figure that out.
And we do have to say that in most states that is not acceptable. I believe that's breaking the law if you are tape recording somebody without their knowledge of it. We've seen other parents do this before and hear things that let them know that their child wasn't safe. We would never tell you to go and break the law. That is not something that Autism Live would do or that Nancy or I would ever do. However, I certainly understand the plight of these parents. And if you don't know if your child is safe, I don't know at what place you stop to be able to know for sure that your child is safe, especially in the presence of when you see that something has changed.
Right.
And this is particularly disturbing if you read the article. I don't want to bum everybody out for the rest of the day, but the things that these teachers said to this young man,
profanities
and just belittling him and telling him that he couldn't do things and making fun of him when he couldn't do something about that he was trying to write a letter and saying it's just a letter, why can't you do it, what's hard about it. It makes me want to cry and either lay down for hours and cry or pick up like some banner and go march on someplace and say, this will not do. But I'm thrilled that these people have been fired.
Right.
Thrilled that, but that is going to take a long time for this young man to get over.
Yeah, it is.
It's just so disturbing.
Yeah, and damaging to his self-esteem and his progress.
And especially when sometimes, I think it's hard for any kids. I have, as a former teacher and being in the classroom, I have seen before when teachers just pick on a kid. For whatever reason, there's just a kid that they pick on. Man, that drives me crazy. And that kid is trying to language it to someone. I'm talking about neurotypical kids who are fully verbal and might go home and say, Mom, that teacher doesn't like me or whatever. And it's hard to know as a parent what's happening there or not. But then when you multiply that times 7 million with a kid who doesn't have skills to be able to communicate what's happening. And what we see in those circumstances is that they will act out. That is what happens. They'll throw things. A new behavior will crop up. It's not a coincidence. And as parents, we need to be aware of that.
Yes, we do.
I think always Richard Stripp has a book. We need to have Richard back on the show. That's Mommy, I wish I could tell you what they did to me at school today. And let me tell you, it's very eye-opening because Rick worked in schools as an aide until he couldn't do it anymore, where he just was like, people aren't listening to me. But he tells you from everybody's point of view. He tells you from the point of view of the parent, having the kid throw his shoes into the trash bin so that he couldn't be ready for the school bus to come and get on it on time. But then he tells you from the point of view of the kid, if I could tell you this is what happened to me and this is why I'm throwing my shoes away, believe me, you will be changed after reading it. That's his Richard Stripp's book. Okay, so, but in better news. Yes,
Zappos and PBS Kids launch a clothing line for children on the autism spectrum.
Which is a very interesting thing for them to have gotten into. Zappos, which we all know from, the shoes online. They call them an e-tailer instead of a retailer. I like that. And PBS Kids. Yeah. So they're cute. The clothes are cute.
They're very cute. They have they show an example here with all kinds of animals on it and So, against the backdrop of Autism Awareness Month, the PBS Kids Adaptive Apparel Collection is now exclusively available on Zappos.com.
Which we absolutely love, and they say that their PBS Kids is committed to diversity and inclusion, helping children of all abilities learn and grow. And that comes from Dawn Saccone, the Vice President Brand Licensing, in a statement. She says this collaboration with Zappos Adaptive is one more way we're honoring that commitment.
Right,
So
and the clothes are for kids and adults with sensory issues and mobility challenges. They include t-shirts and lounge pants that are button-free, feature dissolvable tags, which is an interesting idea, and come in soft, machine-washable fabric. And it can be worn either forward or backward for versatility, so there's no wrong way of putting it on.
And they come in sizes 18 months to 6X. Now, the
Right.
only thing in this that we would say is you need to consider a line for adults, right? Because as the kids get older, sometimes those sensory things don't go away.
That's right. And it's very reasonably priced, from $26 to $32.
There you go. Okay, so kudos to Zappos and PBS Kids. Love it, love it, love it. Now, I particularly thought this article in U.S. World News report, because I know you and I have a lot of conversations about the impending cliff, and kids get to a certain point. So there's an article that they have right now, Entering Adulthood with Autism, that falling off the services cliff can have dire consequences for young adults. And I thought it was just a very informative article about the challenges that everybody faces as their kids get older, and it's a really difficult time. Did you like the article, Nancy?
Yes, I did.
Of
course, it resonated with me because I have a child who's aging up, and I'm worried about what's going to happen when he's finished with high school.
Yes, absolutely, as anybody is and would be. So a very interesting article, U.S. World News report. If you guys want to read it, it's from Gabby Galvin. Lots of information about studies that show that our kids, that there is a cliff, there is a services cliff. But it's April, and so there's a lot of things always about this. Was it last year or the year before that they had a special on ABC about the cliff, and they showed three different families.
Yes.
And I had heart palpitations in the first hour because I knew here were these, and I haven't been there yet, but here were these parents, and they were like, well, we don't really know what's going to happen when he turns 21. And I was like, oh my God, they haven't figured it out yet that they're going to have to create something. And I was pacing around the couch, and Jim was like, you got to sit down. I was like, no, they haven't realized yet that they're going to have to take, they're hoping that they're going to arrive someplace that already exists, and I know there isn't.
Right.
And they're going to have to bind together. And of course, by the end, they have figured that out.
Right.
And then I could watch it. But that transition of the parents because once your kids get settled into a program that's at least moderately effective, you get to take a breath. And you don't really realize, oh gosh,
down the line is coming very quickly.
I gotta go back to where I had to reinvent the world when he was 3.
Right.
And that's a lot, especially because then you're older, they're older, their issues are different and more defined.
Right.
It's a tough time. It's a tough time. But I want to encourage everybody, no matter what age your child is, to know what your rights are, that our kids in the United States have a right starting at age 14. It has to be in place by their 16 to that ITP that we've been talking about more, that individual transition plan. I think that that's at least part of the solution, having that in place so that the cliff isn't as much of a surprise.
Right.
16 was news to me last year. In any case, so we've got our guest from One Hope Wine, Amanda Lamberti.
So we'll have Amanda in here.
And she's going to come in and talk with us about this amazing mission that they're on and how it's benefiting our kids, which is a lovely thing.
And you can drink wine while helping autism. How good is that?
It's amazing, right?
Yeah.
That's like, how did that happen? It's great. We need more things like that.
Okay.
So
we'll be
stick
back.
with us. Yes.
Hello, activists. Let's talk about Step 7. Recognize your gifts and abilities. Whatever gifts and abilities you had before autism entered your life, you have them now. And I bet you've developed some that you didn't even know you had. Those gifts and abilities are going to help you in your journey of parenting a child with autism spectrum disorders. Maybe you're a born researcher, teacher, negotiator, or organizer. Well, you're going to need all of those talents. And you could find a whole new calling. That's what happened to me. If you had told me 20 years ago that I was going to leave behind a career as a television producer to work as an autism advocate and activist, I would have said, you're nuts. If you don't think you have any special gifts or abilities, ask someone who loves you. They'll tell you what they are. I guarantee you, you have them. What's your special gift? Find it, use it, for yourself, for your child, for the good of all concerned. Until next time, keep the faith.
Hi, I'm Yvonne Johansson, and this is My Little House.
My Little House is an interactive, multi-sensory educational felt toy that I invented to help develop children's language skills.
I love My Little House.
I've been working as a speech therapist for over 20 years. I have spent my entire career working with young children. I work with children with language delays, and I have many children with significant cognitive disabilities and children on the autism spectrum. It has been a constant challenge finding toys that are fun, educational, and actually engage my students. In every preschool since I've been a young therapist, we carry on these felt boards. Kids love them because they're soft and they're fluffy, and there's usually these little pieces that attach to these boards because felt sticks onto felt. You bring them into the activity because they're putting a piece on the board. So it's almost kind of like magic. So then I just thought, wouldn't it be great if I could just take this one-dimensional board and make it into an actual three-dimensional toy? How cool would that be?
That's the idea behind My Little House. You can spread it out flat like a 4-panel felt board, or here's the cool part. In the blink of an eye, My Little House easily converts into a 3-dimensional reversible house.
This is the outside. This is the inside.
My Little House comes with 36 felt cutout pieces that match outlines in 8 colorful rooms. And they're felt, so they stick. Each piece inside My Little House has been placed with purpose.
For instance, in the kitchen, whole, half, under, on top, inside, big, bigger, and biggest, empty and full, circle, triangle, inside, outside.
Really cool thing, I have a nonprofit, Lecotech. They are the folks that put out the Differently Abled Guide for Toys R Us. They've been doing it for 25 years. They gave me their seal of approval as a toy that they feel is a toy with purpose, and that will make a difference. But My Little House isn't just for kids on the spectrum or with significant disorders. It's also for typically developing 2 to 5-year-olds. It's a fun toy.
Oh, this is so soft. That piece goes.
Recently, I took My Little House to the American Speech and Hearing Association convention in Philadelphia, and the response from my peers was overwhelming. Hundreds of therapists, teachers, and heads of school districts wanted to order them.
It was real validation for me that this truly is a toy that needs to get out there.
Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod. I'm a proud autism mom, I'm a former educator, and I am the host of Autism Live. And as all 3 of those things, I want to recommend to you My Little House. This is one of the smartest toys I have ever seen for teaching language to kids who have emerging language. Whether they're on the autism spectrum or completely neurotypical, it's a great, fun, reinforcing toy, but it's especially great for our kids that are on the autism spectrum because it makes learning fun and it makes it tactile. They have these felt shapes and they get to match them up. And I'm telling you, even the adults love to play with this. We loved this toy so much that we wanted to be able to bring it to you at a great discount. So right now, if you will go to www.smartfelttoys, and when you get to the coupon code, put in a-live.com, you'll get $5 off. Isn't that great? So I want to encourage you, go and get My Little House for all the kiddos in your life. Welcome back
Here
to
we are.
Let's Talk Autism with
Yes.
Shannon and Nancy. And we've got this fabulous guest here who's already been a light in the studio with us.
Yeah.
We've got Amanda Lamberti. Am I saying that correctly?
You are, yes.
And you are the director of One Hope Foundation.
I am.
And also the director of events at One Hope.
I do.
Yes.
Wear
So
two hats.
First of all, tell us about One Hope and what One Hope is and does.
So we are a social impact company. And all the products that we make give back to a different nonprofit. So primarily wine, but also we've got some new pantry products and gift products. So everything that we sell gives back.
So each label gives to a different charity.
Correct.
And tell us about the autism label.
So we actually have, we've got 2 Cabernets that give back to autism. To Act Today.
To Act Today, to Autism Care and Treatment Today, and they give specifically for ABA therapy.
Correct. We've got a core Cabernet, which is our, it's kind of our starting label, and then we've also got a reserve, which is a little bit higher of a price point.
Okay.
And that also gives back to Act Today.
Which is fantastic. So I'm going to encourage you all to go buy One Hope because you can, I mean, how great is that you can drink wine while doing good?
It's one of the best things I've ever heard of. Honestly, I mean, it's such a great thing that your company does. I want to thank you as a parent for the fact that you guys do this. And also, you know, you may not be a big wine drinker, but the perfect gift to give, because you have to give gifts to people, and when you give a gift of a One Hope bottle of wine, you first of all, you're giving a caring gift, a wonderful gift, but also there is a message on the bottle that talks about the mission, so that, you know, it's one of those alignment things that you're doing all the things that you want to do in life and they're all properly aligned, that you've done double duty. You gave a beautiful gift that someone will cherish and really be like, oh, that's so thoughtful, but then they, at some point, it's a beautiful bottle. All your bottles are beautiful.
Yeah, they're gorgeous.
And there's a beautiful statement on them that they will look at and go, oh, that's right. You're dealing with autism, and by giving me this bottle of wine, I'm helping to ensure that kids get ABA. Makes me happy.
We also have, we have gift boxes. We have 3 gift boxes that also give back specifically to Act Today. So one is like for a golfer, so it's a bottle of wine, some of our coffee, so you know, the golfer can start out coffee in the morning and then end the day with some lovely cab, and then there's also some, I think, golfing tees and golf balls in there, and then there's another one that's more of sort of a picnic style, so you've got cheese and a bottle of our cab, and so all of that is available on our website, but those are also...
And the website is?
OneHopeWine.com.
OneHopeWine.com. So if you're looking for the perfect gift, please go to that and order, because it helps Act Today, Autism Care and Treatment Today. Now, One Hope Wine is the Medal of Honor title sponsor of our run this weekend, the 8th annual One Hope Act Today for Military Families, 5K, 10K, which is in San Diego.
Yep.
And tell us why you support that event.
You know, it's probably the easiest question that you'll ask me today. It's a really important event for us, really for 2 reasons. You know, we've worked with Act Today we're going on 11 years now.
I know. We've been there since the beginning.
It's truly since the beginning of One Hope. And so the run is really important for us, you know, to continue to support our relationship with Act Today and for families with autism, but also as a way of saying thank you and helping to support military families. You've really created sort of the perfect storm of an event there, and we're so proud to be a part of it. So, you know, we say yes every year without even thinking about it. So.
And there's some really fun aspects of the event. There's a resource fair afterwards and a fun zone for kids, and a quiet zone and all of that. But also one of the main attractions is the wine and beer tent, correct?
Yes. It is. It's such a fun day. And we were just actually talking about this in the office yesterday, and how it's such a lovely event for the whole family to be able to come. You know, I don't know that every run is put together that way, but there is so much to do from music and different vendors, and of course we'll be there and you come chat with us, and then yes, the lovely beer and wine garden. So we will be there with some nice wine, nice cold wine after the run in the morning.
Yeah, which there's always a big crowd at the wine and beer tent.
Of course.
Yeah. So we encourage you to you could go to our website at act-today.org and look for the run if you'd like to join us, and you can also be a virtual participant and just make a donation. So it helps military families with children with autism.
Yeah.
And we want to thank One Hope for all of your support through the years.
Oh, it's our pleasure. We hope to keep up the relationship.
We do too.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Amanda, for
You're
joining us
welcome.
today. Okay. We'll be
And
with
one more time, the website for
Oh,
One
yeah,
Hope?
one more time.
OneHopeWine.com.
Okay, make sure you get those great gifts. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
thank you, Amanda.
All right, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
Do you provide care services to someone with autism? Recently, more and more children are being diagnosed with the condition and getting the support they need as awareness grows. But what happens to these children as they grow up? It's estimated that over 500,000 youth with autism will turn 18 in the next decade, and they'll be faced with a very difficult reality. As children with autism grow up, their services start to disappear or become very difficult to access. Things like medical care, mental health counseling, vocational training, and more. All services that are still desperately needed. The loss of support that youth with autism face as they grow up is so severe that it's referred to in the autism community as falling off a cliff. Adults with autism need the same level of support they had as children to avoid falling off the services cliff. Introducing Skills Living, the web-based software designed specifically to help transitioning youth and adults with autism so they can avoid the cliff and instead fly to success. With Skills Living, help your learner with autism develop the skills they need in all the critical areas of adult life, including self-control, planning, and problem-solving, effective communication, performing life skill tasks for independent living, acquiring and maintaining employment or other meaningful activities, developing and maintaining social skills and relationships, accessing transportation and public services, and being safe. Skills Living includes a comprehensive assessment, a data collection mobile app, behavior intervention plan builder, and automatic progress reporting. It also provides a complete curriculum addressing 16 key areas spanning the entire range of functioning adulthood. Skills Living is easy to use and can be implemented by schools, parents, and autism service providers. Call or click today for your free demo and see how Skills Living can help your learner with autism avoid the cliff and instead reach their fullest potential. Skills Living. Wish, learn, become.
What would you do if your child was hurting?
If your family's future was uncertain.
If help seemed out of reach.
Have you been given no hope?
Taka means I am not alone in this.
This is the reality for families affected by autism. And today, the number of children with autism is growing more rapidly than ever. Taka unites these families and ensures that they do not have to fight this battle alone.
Our oldest son, Jared, who has autism, when we first took him to the doctor to get the diagnosis, you know, it's so sad because they offer you nothing. There's no help, there's no hope.
One of the things that you learn with autism is being very grateful for even the small milestones. You know, when you first get the diagnosis, you go through all the range of emotions. You know, this can't be happening. Why is this happening? You have to get to a point where it's the emotion that has to be leading is, what can I do? The first thing that struck me was walking to a room and seeing, oh my gosh, we're not alone. And there is this very strong community that's already set. And something I still today associate with Taka the most is hope. To me, that's what Taka means. Taka means hope.
It's like you've got all these dreams and goals of what your son's gonna do, and you get your diagnosis and you're sent home. And that's it. There's no plan of action. There's no, here's autism, here's what we're gonna do to make your life better and help him. It's strictly go home and try to process it and go on the internet. It was devastating, and you just, you know, you go through this 3-week of depression and then you snap out of it. You have to. And then you start making phone calls and trying to figure out what is autism and what are we gonna do? And then we found Taka, and it was life-changing.
Autism, there really is no definitive answer. It is trying to find the resources that are out there that can assist you to help your child so that, you know, you just don't feel so helpless at those particular moments.
There was direction and there was hope and there was a little ray of sunshine that he's gonna be okay and we're gonna be okay. I always look back and think we would never be where we are. Carson wouldn't be where he is at without Taka.
So 13 years ago, my son was diagnosed with autism, and that put our whole family into a tailspin. There were so many different ideas and things that were not proven. Nobody knew what guidance to give us. We had no direction. And then we found Taka. They helped give us a path to follow, help give our son a better future and make him healthy and put him back onto the road of recovery. When your son's first diagnosed, the first thing you hope for is, gosh, I just want my son to speak. I just want to be able to communicate with him in some way. Then you want a little more. You want him to go to a regular school. Then you want him to potentially have a real life and go to college. So you're always hoping for the future of your child. My son is a happy, healthy, vibrant young boy that's going to turn 15 really soon. And we couldn't be more pleased, and without Taka, I don't think we'd be in the place that we are today. We believe the future is not defined for many affected by autism. There is hope and direction for these kids and their families. Taka is dedicated to providing community, support, education, and hope to families affected by autism.
At Taka?
At Taka.
At Taka,
We are families with autism helping.
Helping.
Helping families.
helping families with autism.
Hi, my name is Matt. I am 19 years old, and I was diagnosed with autism when I was 6 years old. Autism is one of the fastest growing developmental disabilities in the United States, but I am living proof that with the right treatment, hope is possible. My future is not limited. Today, I am attending Fullerton Community College, and I run for the cross-country team for fun with my friends. It makes me feel proud when I think about my progress. Chances are you know someone affected by autism. Show them they are not alone and help others get on the road to recovery. Contribute to Talk About Curing Autism today.
Hey, I'm throwing a party at my place if you want to come.
Thanks, but parties really aren't my thing.
You think I'm incapable of raising a child?
I was going to tell you. I have a good job. I'm married. Why can't you see that?
I did the best I could for both of you.
Happy Independence Day.
Welcome back. You just saw a trailer for an amazing film, and we have the filmmaker here, Jonathan Carlander, and one of the actors, Crash Buist, is here with us in the studio. I want to start by talking about Jonathan for just a second, because this is his second time being on the show with us. We're really excited to have him here. He is from Long Beach. He's been a longtime lover of cinema, and the last time you were here, you had just debuted a film that you had done as you were graduating from college. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, at Columbia College Hollywood, I went to film school there, and I was promoting my thesis film called The Pleasing List, about an autistic protagonist.
And we're thrilled to have you. We've been around long enough now that we get to have people come and sometimes they're talking about something and they get to come back and say, yep, that project that I was working on, you got this new passion project. So we're excited that you're here. We should mention, I forgot to ask you before, but you'd been on the show before, that you are on the autism spectrum.
You have Asperger's syndrome.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And
proud of it.
And proud of it. Okay.
There we go.
Proud of it.
And it seems like most of your films are focusing on that topic.
It's so funny. When I first started making movies, they were mostly rip-offs of very bad horror movies. And mine were just as worse. And I wanted to make a personal film with The Pleasing List for the first time. And so now I'm sort of hooked to doing personal films. And autism is very, obviously very, I think, as personal as I could possibly be.
And this movie is called Autistic America.
Autistic America.
It's a 13-minute short. And it centers, tell us what the film centers, what's the subject matter?
Well, it's about, the movie is called Autistic America, as you said, and it takes place in a small, really neighborhood, and it's about 3 people with autism going about their business on the 4th of July. So you have Tim, played by John Untalan. I hope I'm getting that last name correct, but John plays Tim, who's an artist who's invited by Crash here, his character Mike, to a party, a 4th of July bash. Another character, Paula, she wants to marry her boyfriend Jack and have a child. And our third story is around Ian, who is trying to reconcile with his estranged father at his old family house.
Okay. And Crash, you play the neighbor.
Right, yeah, Mike.
Mike, and you're trying to sort of befriend him, aren't you?
Yeah, it's just, it starts off very simple, and I think like a lot of the best stories, it starts simple and then things aren't as simple. And he notices there's somebody across the street who moves in and he wants to be a good neighbor and he wants to meet this person, and then learns that, it isn't quite what he was expecting, and still makes a friend. And it's just, it was really interesting reading the script because it was just so touching and so simple. I think it's really interesting you saying that you did complicated rip-offs of horror movies, and then you're like, I'm going to do something simple that touches me, and it was surprising to read it, and I was really excited, and I was glad I was able to help out and do it and do the film. It was great. It was
What a great thing.
He was
so fun.
He was phenomenal.
I'm curious because we haven't seen you in a couple of years and you were just getting out of college and you had so much enthusiasm, but being a filmmaker is a really challenging thing to pick, right?
It
I
is.
mean, you have...
But it's fun.
It is fun and very rewarding when you get to do it. In the interim, since we last saw you, how difficult was it for you to get this film made?
It was a challenge. It was, well, first of all, before I decided to make the film, I was trying to break into the industry, and for a couple of years I was a intern, and it wasn't really, the internship was great, but it wasn't really going anywhere. So, so I actually quit the internship, and I came up with the idea of Autistic America, and to make a long story short, I approached a couple of producers. One of them lives in my neck of the woods, named Eric Blackburn. And he has a stepson who has autism, and he said, I'd love to help you produce this. And so for about $7,000, we were able to shoot this movie in literally 2 days at a friend's house. And as fun as the shoot was, I remember coming home every day for those 2 days just feeling like I'd run a marathon or something. I was very physically exhausted. But the weird thing is that it was the good kind of exhaustion. It was like, I feel like I've achieved something.
Yeah.
As opposed to the exhaustion where you feel like, I just wasted X number of hours and I can't get it back.
Right.
So
that gratification of job well done.
That gratification of just working with great people and getting this very personal story on camera. So it was challenging, but it was so worth it.
So $7,000 budget. How long did it take you from when the producer said I want to produce it to get to those 2 days when you shot?
I originally approached Eric, the producer, in April, so in late April, and we shot
Of last year.
Of 2017, and we shot for 2 days in August.
Wow.
And the editing of the film took about the rest of 2017 to do.
So when he said yes, you already had the script in place, or just the idea?
I had the idea, and I had, I think, a very rough draft of it, and he helped me polish the draft and get it to a place where it was shootable and workable, because originally it was like almost 30-something pages, and it was 4 stories. But because of budget reasons and time reasons, we had to cut the script pages, and one of the stories was very similar to Ian's story, but it was about a young kid named Danny, but it was sort of similar, so I said, well, I'll just cut that out. And I'm glad I cut it out, because I think 3 stories is pretty well suited for a short film. If it was a feature, maybe 4 or 5, but 3, I think, for a short film was the right number.
Go ahead.
Sorry,
Shannon, your turn.
What is your need? What is your goal with the film? What message do you hope to get across?
The same message. I mean, it's worth repeating again and again until society's ears open up. And I tried to do it with the pleasing list too. is that people with autism are human beings. They are not walking labels. They're individual human beings. They aren't all into mathematics or astronomy. They're not all the stereotypical Rain Man, Raymond Babbitt type of person. I just want people to really grasp that concept of the individuality of autism and how broad the spectrum is. I mean, if you've seen the movie, the characters do have challenges, and that is seen in the movie, but they make eye contact and they're fully verbal.
They're all high functioning.
Exactly.
Right.
Now, for Crash, when you came onto this project, did you audition or did you already know Jonathan?
I did audition. Eric was producing the film. Eric Blackburn was producing the film, and we have a mutual friend, Jennifer, who sent me a message saying, like, we need to tape this thing. We're looking for this guy. And it was, for me, one of just a bunch of different auditions that I said, got it, and like read the script and did the thing and woke up and taped it. And then I got to read the script. I got like a very small bit of sides. So I came in way late. I didn't know that. I didn't even know until just now that there were 4 different stories during the development, that it was longer. I mean, Jonathan and I were just talking on the way in here because we both individually have done different things and had individual careers here. And there's so much that goes on when you're building this thing. Like, that you probably before you even started writing, right? It was an idea of some kind.
It was just a seed.
Yeah, right. And then that's awesome to hear. But for me, and as an actor, you're lucky enough to come into a project when all of that strife and thought process and reworking and staying up late at night and saying, oh my God, where do those hours go? I'll never get them back, is already done. So I got to just come in, work on the script, meet Jonathan, shoot it.
What did you know about autism before you got involved with the project?
Very little. My father's sister was autistic, and I remember he told me a lot about it at one point when I was growing up. It came up at some point, but she unfortunately passed away long before I was ever around.
Right.
So I heard just sort of like how living with an autistic sister was for him when he lived in where he grew up in New Orleans and then California. But it was always a passing thing, always consider other people, consider other people's feelings. You don't know really what's going on with other people and their lives. And then that was it for me. It wasn't ever something that I lived with in my immediate vicinity. And it was really exciting to get to work with Jonathan because I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. I was like, oh, it's a film called Autistic America. The director is autistic, and my immediate thought was, oh no, what am I doing? What am I getting myself into? And it turned out I was getting myself into a professional production with a bunch of really excited, interesting people, and it was great. So
when you auditioned, is that how they worded it to you and said it's a film about autism and the director is on the autism spectrum?
It wasn't that blunt. She told me about the script. I got to read it. She informed me, our friend Jennifer informed me that he knew what he was talking about writing the film. Right?
Okay.
And he was coming from a perspective that was not, because often, especially in Hollywood, you find people that want to talk about something or write about something or direct a film about something that they don't really know anything about.
Yeah.
In order to, I mean, you talked about Rain Man, but I don't know much about the production of that, but using stereotypes to promote their film or using
guesswork.
Yeah, right. And so it was really exciting to be told that I would be working on something that was coming from an informed perspective, that was coming from
the authenticity.
Yes, and that's always really exciting.
And was that a decision that you made, Jonathan, early on, that as you were looking for actors, that you were going to step forward and put that, because I imagine it doesn't come up in every conversation that you have, that you start a conversation and say, oh, and by the way, right? Or do you? How do you address that?
I rarely address it, and when I do, people are like, oh, you don't seem like it, which, is kind of a compliment, but at the same time, people do have this going on guesswork about what autistic people are. And as Alex Plank, who I admire, once said, autism, people don't realize autism is people like myself. And so authenticity with this subject matter, whether it's autism or people in wheelchairs or what have you, are so important. It's so important. One of my favorite directors, for example, is Gus Van Sant, who is homosexual, and he comes from a very personal place, like with Milk and this first feature film he did called Bad Night, which I recommend to the folks out there. And he comes from that personal place, and it's so authentic, and you believe it. He's not making fun of it. He's coming from a personal place, and he's sort of taking off his own skin in a way and showing what's underneath. And I tried to do that with Pleasing List, and of course with Autistic America, because it's so important for me to be honest.
So what are your goals as a filmmaker for the future then?
If I can make movies that are entertaining to people as well as give them hope, then I'm good. That's really all I want to do. I'm very, very simple that way.
And you feel that your Asperger's syndrome has been a benefit to you?
An incredible
How
benefit.
is that?
Because I think visually, for starters, I have a very visual kind of imagination. And as a filmmaker, it's in the script and in the story, of course, but the visuals are what tell the story. It's not like a radio program. And so I think visually, and I think autism has a big part of that. And I also think I'm able to verbally communicate sensitive, emotional subjects to my actors. Like if I need an actor to be sympathetic, or I need an actor to, cry, I think I can communicate that very well, having been through those. So I'm very in touch with my feelings, I guess, which I think helps if you're an artist, period, whether you're a filmmaker or a painter or what have you.
And yet so many of the stereotypes that are misconceptions about the autism spectrum, there are people out there that think that people on the autism spectrum have no empathy, do not experience emotions. It is certainly frustrating for me. I can't imagine what it's like being on the spectrum and hearing those kinds of things. It's wonderful to hear you say it's quite the opposite.
It is the opposite, and it does get my blood boiling when people have the misconception or are just willful about, like, well, what's the harm, and the harm is that it's a justification for discrimination against people who you can benefit from. You don't have to necessarily be their friend, but you have to treat them with respect and dignity.
That's right, dignity. It's the big word. Now, a lot of things have been happening in the film industry. There's this movement now about the inclusion rider. And it's not just about women, it's about everybody and people of ability. I'm wondering, if you guys could speak to the fact, for you just have had this experience of being on a film with a director who's on the spectrum. Is there anything that you want to say to people about what that was like for you guys, and why this inclusion rider should include individuals with autism and individuals with different abilities?
From my perspective, I mean, there's something that you can't, the authenticity that you're talking about is something that you can't manufacture, you can't pretend like it's there. If you don't have inclusion, if you don't have people with different voices telling different stories, I know personally it's not as exciting to tell stories that aren't coming from an authentic perspective. And as far as from an artistic perspective, it's exciting to be a part of that, and I think that is something that I really appreciate about enforcing is not the right word. Having an inclusive perspective like that. Yeah, fostering an inclusive environment and an inclusive industry. So that's really exciting.
What do you think, Jonathan?
Some of our biggest financial successes in the movie business, as well as creatively, came from people who thought differently and perceived the world differently. The biggest example, one of my favorite examples, is Tim Burton. I suspect that he has a lot of, you read interviews, you hear interviews, you look at his hair. No, I'm just kidding. You hear interviews with him, and you definitely get a sense that he sees the world in a very different way, and he has one of the best visual imaginations I think I've ever seen. And his movies, the studios went in kind of hesitant for the most part, and they become these huge successes, whether it's Alice in Wonderland or more personal projects like Edward Scissorhands. So, yeah.
Where something starts off, when something it seems people are apprehensive to go into it, oftentimes that can be the most exciting stuff.
Yeah.
You don't know what's going to happen. I didn't know what was going to happen when I came onto the set, and if I hadn't been told that Jonathan, was on the spectrum in some way, I wouldn't have known. But knowing that, being aware of that, letting that inform your artistic decisions, and letting that inform the environment, the workplace, can be weird and scary. And then also it brings to that next level of well, great, then we accept that, and now we let that inform this, and it has another degree of authenticity. It's more exciting. It's more fun. Everything benefits.
And I love the idea of the authenticity of it, but if you had another opportunity to be directed by Jonathan in a film that wasn't necessarily about autism, that was about something else that he felt authentic about, because that isn't your whole life, would you jump on that chance because he's a good director?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think that was really eye-opening for me as an actor. It was like, oh, this guy's building a cohesive and exciting environment, regardless of the actual subject matter that we're working on. It's like, this is running smoothly. This is really fun. Everybody's having a great time. I 100% would be on board with any kind of project like that. That had nothing to do with, if we were doing one of your horror movies. If you were into that again, suddenly it'd be great.
Well, some horror movies are actually can act as good social commentary.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Night of the Living Dead, for example. Oh my gosh.
My girlfriend just made me watch The Thing recently, and she was bringing it up, and she's like, "This isn't about a monster. This is about a monster. This is about a social monster."
I loved what Guillermo del Toro said at the Oscars about, if you don't see that there's a way to have this sort of fantastic reality talk about society, then you're missing the boat.
Exactly.
I love that. So we've only got like a minute and a half left, but Jonathan, do you already have the kernel of the idea for the next film?
I would like to do a film at some point about workplace bullying.
Workplace bullying.
Workplace bullying.
Okay.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be about autism.
Right.
But I think that is a very serious epidemic, if you will, for a lot of people. I mean, look at what happened, and I don't mean to really get into this, the sex scandal and that sort of thing. Talk about workplace bullying, and so it needs to be addressed. I mean, I think part of your job as a filmmaker is to present problems to people. Even if you don't have a solution, at least you're saying, this is a serious issue in the world. We need to at least start. We have to have serious conversations about this. And an obvious example is Avatar. And the burning of the destruction of cultures and nature and tradition. And so that's one project that I would like to do someday, because I think it's a very tragic issue in our society.
Well,
it's nice to see your success as a filmmaker.
Yes.
I'm sure it's inspirational to a lot of people that are watching today. It shows you what those on the spectrum can accomplish. And if you had a message to anybody that's out there listening that happens to be on the autism spectrum that has a dream, what would it be?
Just keep at it. Don't let your label define you. Embrace it. But remember that you are not alone. You are part of a beautiful community of beautiful people.
Absolutely. Now, where can we see the film?
The film is currently being submitted to film festivals, so it's going to be on YouTube for the public to see, hopefully sooner rather than later. But if you just Google Autistic America, within a few, you could even Google my name, and I have a YouTube channel. It's just Jonathan Carlander.
That's CARLANDER.
Exactly. And you could see the trailer for Autistic America, as well as the pleasing list again. And hopefully, sooner rather than later, you'll be able to check out Autistic America as well.
Very good.
I can't wait till the third time you come back. I can't wait to see what the next project is, Jonathan. I love that we're getting to watch you grow as a filmmaker, and so we can say we knew you when.
Well, it's guys like Crash and you that help keep me going.
Well, I also love that this producer recognized and saw the talent in you and said, I'm going to invest. And I think we need to get more people to do that exact kind of thing. So please, Eric Blackburn.
Eric Blackburn.
Give him our thanks. And we saw on the trailer, Blackburn Productions. good on him that he's associated with such a wonderful, wonderful project. We hope more people do that.
He was wonderful.
All right. Well, we are out of time. I thank you guys so much for being here.
Thank you for joining us today.
I want to say to our viewers that we're back tomorrow with another big show. We have artist Luis Turado, who's going to be here with us, and what an amazing artist he is.
Oh, Luis, yes.
Yes, amazing, amazing work. And we have a clip that we show of him. I guess this week it's like, let's drop in on people and see where they are now. Because we interviewed Luis when he was, I don't know, like 15 years old, and now he's full-grown adult and doing all kinds of amazing things. Just got back from Boston. We're going to talk about all of that with him. Plus, we also have special education attorney Bonnie Yates with us answering your questions, all of that and much, much more happening tomorrow. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me.
And yourselves a hug from me. Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.